OK, closer look at the front pages. Then we will start with the Sunday Telegraph, Lewis.
Sunday Telegraph, Starmer, things will get worse before they get better. And this is in this Telegraph. And this is like a non-news story because it hasn't happened yet. He hasn't said this. He's supposed to say it on Tuesday. And I don't know. I didn't get to the point where he said he was going to say it. But this is only in Britain would somebody say things are going to get worse before they get better. I mean, he should have. I think he said that enough before the election. And he's saying the Tories left us with no money and whatever. But we're the Tories to say, you're just using this as a groundwork to increase taxes.
Isn't it like a well-known phrase? It's like it's always darkest before the dawn. It's not like he's just invented the idea of things getting worse before they get better. And the story also, previously, we know they've been talking about this massive black hole of money. But he's also saying there's like a societal problem that they've been left with.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when Jimmy Carter gave a speech. Have you heard about this speech that Jimmy Carter gave, President Carter, in like 1979, where he said the whole America was in a deep, dark space and people were like really bad right now and we got to work our way out of it. And he was totally destroyed in the election by Ronald Reagan because Americans don't want to hear that stuff. And I don't think British people want to hear that stuff. We've heard enough of it. What are you going to do? You're a dictator already. What you did with these protesters was horrific and undemocratic, and maybe it was deserved, but it was totally handled wrong, and the people are fed up. So we want to hear a little bit of bright news.
Yeah, Nick, it's not cool Britannia, is it? It's not 1997, it's not Tony Blair.
No, well, it's influenced by Blair. I mean, he had things only get better. He's gone with things will get worse. Needs a little bit of work, I would suggest. Things will be great for his cronies, as we'll get onto in the next story, but it's going to be the classic Labour. They're going to tax. They said they wouldn't, but they will. It's going to be capital gains, inheritance tax, raid on businesses, all the normal Labour stuff. Though he does say one thing that's accurate. He says, I won't shy away from making unpopular decisions now. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
And I thought it was disgusting, again, building on Lewis's point, that he said once again that not having enough prison space he talked about. He said those people throwing rocks, torching cars, making threats, they didn't just know the system was broken, they were betting on it, they were gaming it. I really don't think they were. I think it was a genuine outpouring of rage. I think there's all sorts of people that game the system, fake asylum seekers, for example, all the people that Labour protects and loves. But the people who are upset about Southport, as he's still not acknowledged, they had a genuine outpouring of grief and rage. I don't believe they were gaming the system.
Just when you say, just for a little bit of pushback, though, you say they'll increase all the taxes, that's what Labour always does. And we've just mentioned Tony Blair in 97, so surely, during the Tony Blair era, lower tax burden than a couple of months ago. So it's not what Labour always do.
I wasn't in the country at the time.
No, but
versus the recent Tories.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, the recent Tories are a complete disaster. No one's going to argue against that.
And I'm also not saying Starmer's not going to do that, but the idea like Labour always do it. When in living memory, you can remember a time when Labour didn't do it.
Didn't do what?
I think have higher tax than we have right now.
Yeah,
this idea that Labour always means higher tax than wherever you're at. Well, right now we're at the highest.
Well, I suppose the counter might be that he was building on the economic success developed by Thatcher. And she called him her sort of best creation or whatever.
Yeah. Well, also, was it in the Telegraph where Keir Starmer wrote one of his favourite prime ministers was Thatcher? He still couldn't scare people off. Interesting. Let's move on to the Sunday Times, Nick. What have they got on their front page?
They have got number 10 pass for Labour donor who gave 500k, and they're referring to Wahid Ali. And he has seemingly sort of free reign of Downing Street. Apparently, he has this pass, which is a mystery to everyone in Downing Street. He's sort of allowed to just sort of do what he wants. And this is kind of unprecedented. Again, it's not sort of going against any rules. It sort of points out here. There's no suggestion that Ali is seeking a role or has broken any rules, but it's just kind of going against precedent. And it's part of this larger scandal, they say in the Sunday Times, as cronyism claims swirl around Starmer. And of course, they're talking about people like Ian Caulfield, who had given them £20,000, including £5,000 directly to Reeves, was then hired by Reeves in this director of investment job, which was £162,500. Now has stepped down from it and will have a temporary unpaid advisor role. But there's loads more people. There's Oliver Newton, there's Jess Sargent, who was with Labour together, is straight into a job with no external advertising. So there's what Peter Hitchens has called a constitutional putsch. There's this extraordinary abuse of the neutrality of the civil service, where they're just hiring Labour employees. Some say it's because Sue Gray is blocking appointments of SPADs, refusing to sign off on them, so they're having to sort of do it in a sort of backdoor kind of way. But it's incredibly corrupt, and it's incredibly dodgy, given that, and hypocritical, given how much they talked about cronyism under the Tories. They went on and on about it, and this is just another example of that hypocrisy.
You know what? you know what? I don't believe it. I don't believe that. You know, I'm no fan of the Labour Party. But this, I think, is what happens. The new party gets in, and who gives them money they're going to give a job to? So, you know, they have very little to give. It's like in my borough of Southwark. The council is giving. I'm not saying Southwark. The council is giving out housing.
You definitely already said Southwark.
I said.
I was half listening, and I caught that.
I don't want to go out on a limb.
It's not what happens. There is a big difference. The way they are just handing out civil service jobs to obvious Labour form employees, that is somewhat new. It's different to Quangos. Yeah. It's a new level of blatant.
It's more direct than a Quango. At least it's more efficient, isn't it?
That's
straight to the person who's given the money.
Yeah.
Well, all right, we can move on to the Mail on Sunday. Lewis, what have they got for us?
Mail on Sunday, Kirsty's fury as social services probe her son's interrail trip. And this is the TV presenter Kirsty Alsop, she was like going in and out of houses and somewhere, selling houses.
It's an interesting way of describing location. She went in and out of houses. You know, like no one ever goes in and out of houses.
Yeah, well, it's the kind of thing you watch for a second. You see her going into the house. She's going out of the house. She's asking, would you buy this house? Of course, I used to be an estate salesman. Nobody, housing salesman. Or tried to. Nobody ever bought or rented a house.
People bought at the end of the episodes. Really? Yeah.
I don't remember. Maybe I didn't stay till the end of the episodes. Anyway, she's got a 15-year-old kid, Stephen. And the kid's going off to Europe on the Interrail thing, which my son is going next week. So, and he's not 16, he's 22. But she's being investigated by the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea.
Your son is also being taken away by social services, but for different reasons.
You know what? Because I called him up. I said, get him out of my house. I can't get him out of my house. He's doing nothing. He's not giving me any money. Should I get money from my kid?
Anyway, back to this. What happens? So he goes on a holiday.
He goes on a holiday, and the social services say, we're not going to do anything about it, but we're going to write it down on a piece of paper. And that's typical of what's happening. And I don't know whether, I think they're the conservative borough, Kensington and Chelsea. I think they're conservative. So it's just it's the way the country's going. Police state Britain.
Yeah, the state thinks it owns your kids. We've seen many examples of this. I mean, you know, just the difficulty in things when, like, the school wants doesn't want to tell the parents about your kid being trans or experimenting with it. Yeah. Numerous examples, which is disgusting. My only question is, I do sympathise with Kirsty also, but has she always sided against the regime and against the left? I question that, because if you've stood up to these things like me, you've got a clear conscience. But has she always? That would be my question. Because I sort of vaguely remember doing some tweets that are okay and some that are a bit woke.
You pay your taxes. I've heard you pay your taxes.
Yeah.
So you don't stand up to the regime.
Oh, I see what you mean. You want me to go to jail for tax evasion?
Yeah. I mean, so how far should you be? I'm not saying you do. I don't even know if you pay your taxes, but we all pay.
I definitely do. Yeah.
I assume that you do. I assume.
But the idea that if you find a tweet where they've said something a bit pro-masky, then they can take your kids. That would make
No, I'm just saying, have you really opposed the total state and the radical leftist sort of centralisation, expansion of the state? I've opposed it. I'm not saying it means they should take her kids, no. Yeah. But I'm saying maybe now she'll realise the kind of thing they're up to.
But she won't. She won't realise it. And people don't realise it. They just think, this is just one guy who's working there who's no good, or maybe one borough, but the rest of the boroughs are good. When I say we, the English people, in America too, is that we're in a state of war with these people. They just want everything from us. They're not going to be happy until we're happy.
For balance, I will say maybe 15-year-olds shouldn't be on trains because they're annoying. There's your balance. There you go.
I think that's true. I mean, it's pretty bold. I don't know, can I use that word? It's pretty nervy of her to send her kid on a... Nowadays, we used to go...
balls.
Have you done this show for years and you can't tell when the host is trying to move on? I'm amazed at that.
And that's the front pages covered. In the next section, debanking, deflorination and demand needs healthcare. Find out more next. Right, Nick, The Observer. Do we need a national men's health strategy? The current one is don't ever talk about it and die young.
And that was working fine for so many years. Yeah, it's English Council's call for National Men's Health Strategy. And, it points out that men in deprived areas live almost 10 years less than their more affluent peers. That, to me, sounds like a poverty issue more than a mental health issue, which I still think, having read the article, that it does point out the suicide rate is 3 times higher for men than women. That's a massive problem. But this seems more like a sort of problem of inequality, if you want to use that word. Some people are poor, they smoke and drink more as a sort of relief, and then they die early. That's basically it. But to use another phrase, this is a kind of again, this is the expansion of the therapeutic state. That's what we have now. Coined by Thomas Sass, that phrase originally. What it is the allegedly medical becomes political. And you could argue the zenith of this was the COVID jab, where even a vaccine became political. You were some sort of dissident for not having a jab, which was quite strange when you think about it. So, but it's applied to mental health for ages, hasn't it? If there's something wrong with you, you shouldn't, as a man in 2024, you shouldn't feel normal, because we're in a completely abnormal system. You're in an atomized system. You're not hunting, are you?
Yeah.
You're not in, the family's destroyed. We should feel a bit weird. It's quite normal to feel there's something wrong, is my belief. Of course, there's things you can do to feel better, but I'm just saying we've made everything a medical issue. But it's not that our society feels like it's in decline. It's not a medical issue to notice that.
But the points that make up your argument are also there for men and women, men who are rich, men who are poor, and old or young men. So you shouldn't see the disparity based on those demographics. That's maybe the problem that needs fixing. Yeah, life's weird, but if one subsection of society is killing themselves more, look at it.
Yeah, but then that's, as I said at the start, that seems like a poverty issue more than a mental health issue.
And let's just say it is a poverty issue. They're saying that people who make less money die sooner. And that's an incentive for going out and working hard, is you say you're going to die sooner. So I don't think it can be ameliorated. I don't think it can be helped. I think,
good word.
I think the fact is that men who don't have money are dying early. And maybe if this government wanted to help people, they'd stop the socialism and they just and they would make it easier for men to make money.
But a lot of these people will be the people that Starmer explicitly despises and is thrown in prison.
Yes, so it's not going to happen. I didn't say it was going to happen.
No.
It was a dream. It was socialists, or whoever these people are, the left, they hate people and they want them dead.